that on the 12th of April, I launched a brand new political party. It was called the Brexit Party, and you may have noticed that last night it managed to take 32% of the national vote across the country and be the leading party, in fact, the biggest party in terms of MEPs from across the whole of the European Union. So, yeah, I'm in a pretty jolly mood. But what I want to debate today is, what have we learned from those European election results? And I'll perhaps kick this off by saying the first thing I've learned is that in the modern world, politics can change incredibly quickly.
Well, there you have it, Nigel Farage. He's an interesting character, like so many British politicians are. He's not just the leader of a political party, he's got a radio talk show gig, and he is the clear victor of the election results. I was over there in Manchester, as you know. My focus was primarily on our personal friend, Tommy Robinson, who is also a free speech advocate and a warner of the risks of Islamification. But there are other points of view as well, including, well, what does this possibly mean for the United States? And in particular, for Nigel Farage's personal friend, Donald Trump. Well, joining us now from the Los Angeles area is our friend Joel Pollak, senior editor-at-large at Breitbart.com. Joel, great to see you. You've got a very interesting article. It's the American perspective on Trump. Brexit party win, also a victory for Trump. You make 4 persuasive arguments. Tell our readers why you think Donald Trump won on Sunday night, too.
Well, first of all, Trump is a close ally of Nigel Farage, who you heard there on that audio from his radio show. And the two of them campaigned together in 2016. Farage actually spoke to a Trump campaign rally. Farage, of course, was the driving force behind the original Brexit referendum. His UK Independence Party, which he's no longer a part of, had pushed for a separation from the European Union for many years. And when Brexit happened, Trump said his election would be like Brexit, essentially a vote for American national sovereignty. So Farage and Trump are allies. More than that, the foreign policy of the United States is pro-Brexit in the sense that the Trump administration welcomes Britain's separation from the European Union, arguing that EU trade rules are unfair, and Trump has essentially promised Britain that once it leaves the European Union, the United States will seek a free trade deal with Britain. So it's a win in that sense, but it's also a win because the revolt of the British electorate in the elections last week shows that there's a political price to be paid by parties that don't fulfill the mandates of their voters. And Trump was elected on specific policies that Republicans continue to oppose. That is to say, Republicans in Washington, Republican establishment leaders in Washington. The wall on the southern border with Mexico and trade, improvement in trade through diplomatic means, through pressure, through trade, tariffs and things like that, but essentially a reworking of America's trade relations with the rest of the world. So these two issues, trade and immigration, have fueled Trump's political rise, and yet the Republican establishment in Washington is very reluctant to implement those policies, particularly on immigration. And the Brexit vote is a reminder that even a party as strong as the Conservatives in Britain can be laid low, essentially, if they fail to implement the populist agenda that they are charged with carrying out. So Theresa May saw her party fall to 5th place, its worst result in almost 200 years, because she basically tried everything she could do not to implement Brexit, in much the same way that Senate leaders and before them the House Republican leaders who've now been ousted, they tried everything they could do not to implement Trump's policies. Now, some policies they agreed with, like tax cuts, that's come along very nicely, but on enforcing immigration law and building a border wall and reworking American trade policy, they have not been very enthusiastic. And some of the Trump supporters argue that's why Republicans lost Congress in 2018. So it's a reminder that the Trump agenda is the agenda that the American electorate wants to see implemented. Now, there's the other half of the electorate who doesn't want to see that implemented. They're also frustrated with standard Democratic Party politics. That's why they're moving so far to the left and embracing democratic socialism, essentially, in much the same way that the Remain position has become the opposition in the UK, so much so that the second place party in the European parliamentary elections was the Liberal Democratic Party, which is a small fringe third party, now the second biggest party in Britain, at least on the strength of its result last week. And they had a platform that was focused on the Remain position in the EU. It was beaten by the Brexit position, but essentially they told Remain voters, we are the party that will represent your interests. So you're seeing a polarization, not so much because Americans are becoming more radical in one direction or another, but because the political establishment on both sides is reluctant to implement the will of the people. There's a rebellion in both countries against the establishment. That's what Trump represents, and that's why the Brexit victory in the UK a few days ago is a big plus for Trump going into 2020. He can say, this is the agenda I'm running on because this is what I was elected to do. I've done as much of it as I can do. You need to elect more leaders who will come with me to Washington and finish the job.
That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day I do a video monologue and then I interview an interesting guest. And then I end by reading my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.